A pleasant day and a warm welcome to your favorite show, Law and Order. During this program, we were discussing about certain disciplines that were very important for your knowledge with regard to the legal environment. So we people have rights. Basically, when it comes to fundamental rights, we have a lot to discuss, and today we are going to focus about the fundamental rights and their certain applications with today's Law and Order program. So to do the honors with us, we do have Mr. Rajiv Amarasuriya, attorney at law. Thank you very much, sir, for joining with us with today's program.
Thank you for the invitation. Good to be here.
Right. Okay, so to start off today's topic, what is fundamental rights?
Yes, it's a good question to start with. We all know there are human rights. Basically, the right to food, right to water, right to free, so on and so forth. Fundamental rights are those rights which a country identifies as being important to include in a constitution. So those rights which are enshrined and protected in a constitution from human rights are considered fundamental rights. Now, if you just look at the constitution, it's important because we all speak of the constitution. Article 3 says, in the Republic of Sri Lanka, sovereignty is in the people and inalienable. Sovereignty includes, now this, everyone talks about sovereignty,
Yes.
includes the parts of government, fundamental rights and the franchise. So it's given utmost importance from Article 3 onwards. Then it's also provided fundamental rights which are by the Constitution declared and recognized shall be respected, secured and advanced by all organs of government and shall not be abridged, restricted or denied, same in the manner and the extent provided in the Constitution. So it's a very important, very important rights, and also very important jurisdiction, because there's a lot which can be achieved. I think you might want me to also say what those rights are.
Yes, exactly.
So the Constitution itself spells out what these fundamental rights are. And Article 10, Article 11, no person shall be subjected to torture, cruel, inhuman and degrading treatment. That is an entrenched right. Then you have this Article 12, which we all use up.
Right.
All persons are equal before the law and are entitled to the equal protection of the law. That is about discrimination. No citizen shall be discriminated against on the grounds of race, religion, language, caste, sex, political opinion, place of birth, so on and so forth. Then you have Article 13, the freedom of arbitrary arrest, detention, punishment, except in terms of law. So of course, if you follow the law, then there is no violation. If you violate the law,
Yes.
first principles. Then you have the other rights which are very widely spoken of. Every citizen is entitled to the freedom of speech and expression, including publication, the freedom of peaceful assembly, freedom of association, freedom to form and join a trade union, freedom either by himself or association with others to manifest a religion, belief, worship, basically to promote one's culture. This is important, freedom to engage in himself or in association with others in any lawful occupation, profession, trade, business or enterprise, freedom of movement, and the freedom to return to Sri Lanka. Article 14A was brought in to the 19th Amendment, and that is the right of access to information. Through the right to information regime. So essentially those, Charita, are the fundamental rights which have been identified by the Constitution. It came in originally the fundamental rights chapter came in the 1972 Constitution, but it didn't have an enforcement mechanism. The 1978 Second Republican Constitution brought in the enforcement mechanism before the Supreme Court, and of course then it's when really the fundamental rights jurisdiction widened, and these are the skeletal rights.
Right.
The courts have developed it, and even right to life and things are now brought in here.
Right. So when discussing about the application scope,
Yes.
what can we comment, sir?
In the sense?
When it comes to the application of fundamental rights in a certain scenario?
Yes, that is important. The Constitution says, so you have what those rights are. Then I think application, also what you mean is enforcement.
Yes.
So the Constitution says if there is a violation of a fundamental right by executive or administrative action,
Right.
then one has recourse to the Supreme Court. Now, since this is I'm not speaking to lawyers as such,
Yes.
so I'll speak in a very simple way. So executive or administration action means state action. So if there is a violation of any of these fundamental rights by, say, a government department, a ministry, some agency of the government, a local authority, some body, official or institution which can be termed to be state, government, public, then, and if there's a violation of your rights, then you have a right to go before the Supreme Court and complain of the infringement of your fundamental right. There are two types of infringements. One is when there is actually a violation, or when there is an imminent violation. Say today I know that some decision will be made tomorrow, or in a week's time, that affects my right. So I can, and if I can demonstrate that. So then you have to go within 1 month of that, either the imminent infringement or the infringement, submit a petition and complain to the Supreme Court that your fundamental rights are violated.
Right. So when coming to a certain context where Sri Lanka applies the fundamental rights, can you give us a certain explanation thereon?
No, so it's a very wide ambit. The fundamental rights jurisdiction applies to every citizen. You and I, for example, take a simple example. We are doing something with the state. Let's say you want to get some trade license or something. They don't give it to you; they give it to somebody else.
Yes.
Similarly, circumstance. Now that is where equality and equal protection of the law comes in. So you are being given something which I am also entitled to. You and I are similar, but I don't get it. So now I am being discriminated vis-a-vis you.
Right.
So that's a violation of my fundamental rights. I mean, it's a very wide concept now. In commercial sense, you can talk about tenders. Then there was a lot of talk about freedom of expression. Say you have a right to express yourselves, then you are not allowed to do that. Then there's a violation.
Right.
Of course, all these rights, one must be conscious, are also subject to certain restrictions in the Constitution itself. For example, of course, those have to be brought in through legal enactments, but you can't this thing, hatred, ethnic, tension, things like that. You can't. National security, national economy. There are various categories under which these fundamental rights can be lawfully restricted.
Right. So in that sense, how do you prefer an application to vindicate the fundamental rights?
So this is, first you need to identify that there is actually a violation. A lot of people feel that they are prejudiced. Now, then you must then identify, have I been, firstly, if you are going to go before the Supreme Court, has that violation taken place by the state? State action, is it by the Grama Niladhari or some ministry or some department, some agency, some body or institution which has the color of the state? Has there been a violation? So if there has been a violation of my fundamental rights in some way, whether I have been discriminated, whether I have been treated unfairly, my freedom of expression has been denied, my freedom of occupation has been denied, then well, there seems to be a violation. Of course, you might seek some legal recourse. Of course, in the fundamental rights jurisdiction, you can also write a letter to the Supreme Court. Of course, that is not just not for everyone. Now, for example, if someone is incarcerated, if someone is in prison, he has no access to lawyers. There have been instances where they have written letter complaining of their violation to the Supreme Court, the Chief Justice, and they have taken cognizance of that. And that doesn't mean everyone who can access a lawyer can write. I mean, there won't be end to it. But there is provision. So you might meet a lawyer, and you might bring out your problem. If there is a violation, you must also, the Constitution says, you must take up or complain of a violation of your fundamental rights within 1 month. That is strict timeline. You can't wait for months and years and go.
That means like the 1 month time is fixed.
Month time is fixed. It's unless it is a continuing violation. Unless you can show that the violation continues in some form. But that is also difficult sometimes to establish. It is the commencement time. That is because, Charita, even the state, now this fundamental rights jurisdiction goes into operations of the state. The state, so you need to allow the state also to function. So if you say you can go in 6 months, say they make a decision today. Then in 6 months, say, just take some example, they are going to build a dam somewhere. They are going to close down the paddy fields or divert the water and build a dam. Now the villagers and the farmers they say they might argue. So now if you allow them to go for 6 months, then you have gone for 6 months in the project, built your dam, then the Supreme Court says, now break it down. So you can't do that now. So they have now, so there is a period of 1 month. In the 1 month, a lot of things won't happen. And so you have to then go before the court. So then you have to prefer your petition. You have to, it's not as of right. It's not like the district court where you file a case. Generally, they will accept the case unless there is some technical flaw. Here you have your lawyer, or you can appear by yourself. You present to court that there is, you present your case.
Right.
They might ask the other side also to come, and then you must establish a prima facie case. That the court must be satisfied that there is a
something
case
to be
looked
taken.
into.
Right.
Looked into. So it's not. So then, if they agree with you that there is something to be looked into, then of course they will grant leave to proceed, and then the other side will be provided opportunity to file objections. You will reply, and then you will take it up for argument.
Right.
That's the
so
process.
the most people think that when it comes to a court case, they consume time and lengthy period of time. Certain hearings are there. What about the fundamental rights, sir?
Yes, that is a problem we are faced in our legal system. We need to urgently correct that. Our litigation is taking too long, and we acknowledge that. So that has to be. Also there have been other issues now with COVID and all these issues. Everything is now getting dragged. The Constitution says that a fundamental rights case must be finished in 2 months. However, the courts have over the years said that is only directory, which is sometimes not practical.
Right.
But having said that, there are cases which sometimes resolve very soon. That is, of course, if there is a settlement or a resolution, the other side comes and says, well, we accept what you're saying, or we'll adjust it. Otherwise, of course, it can take time. Sometimes, I must be frank with you,
Yes.
Sometimes you might have a case within few months, 1 year. Some might take several years. So there are cases which are still being heard. So that is a failing of our legal system, which needs to be corrected.
Right.
But the positive of a case is that if you go in, even if it takes time, the respondents know that there is a case in court.
Right.
So sometimes then they have to be conscious of that. And they know that even if it takes time, they might get order against them. So they can't, act in a certain way. Having said that, it's also, I think, since this is an open forum, it's not very fair on the state also to have these long periods of time. With the state also is then not sure what to do.
Yes.
So we had to urgently develop our country. There is no question about that. So I think we need to also, it's not here, it's fundamental rights cases are generally faster than the other cases. But overall, I think we need to, there are a lot of initiatives underway to expedite this process. There is no.
Yes, sir. Then tell us more about the concept of equality.
Yes. Equality and equal protection of the law is set out in Article 12 of the Constitution.
Right.
Every person is supposed to, the Constitution recognizes every person to be equal before the law. You and I, whether you and me and a minister or a president or a prime minister are considered equal.
Right.
And we must all have the equal protection of the law. Now, equality, the concept of equality works in this also with the concept of reasonable classification.
Right.
That is, now, just because we say everyone is equal, Sadita, that's operationally not possible. Now, you may be in some other profession, I may be in another profession.
Right.
Now you're in this profession, but what I mean is it can be different. So let me take a simple example. Now, let us take a situation where the government gives some tax concession to small manufacturers in the North Central province.
Right.
They are giving a concession. Now that is, they have decided that it is important to promote the small industries.
Right.
Whatever reason. So say I am a large industry in the North Central province.
Right.
I have no equality to go and ask for the same tax concession, but I am in a different category.
Right.
Right? So that, say I am a small industry in the Western province. Again, I have no entitlement to go and ask for it, but this is being given to small industries in the North Central province.
Right.
Now, so that is the concept of this reasonable classification. Having said that, a reasonable classification must be, there must be a intelligible differential. There, like my example has a basis now.
Yes.
And so, differential is small manufacturer in the North Central. Also, that must be rationally related to some objective the government is seeking to achieve. So, you'll have to say, well, we want to develop the small industries in the North Central province because we find that the North Central, just a hypothetical example, we find that the small industries in the North Central province for some reason have not developed.
Right.
So, now we are giving an impetus. So that is how this concept of reasonable classification and equality work. Otherwise, you say everyone is equal, then how do you operate?
Yes.
Then there is the other misconception. There is no equality in illegality. There are clients sometimes who come and say, "Me arayata mehema ekak dunna, me matat eka ganna barida."
Right.
I mean, you have given some benefit, some state has given. But if it's unlawful benefit, if someone has got some unlawful law, illegal thing, you have no equality to get it. Because that is anyway unlawful. So there is no equality in illegality. But otherwise, equality, everyone should be equally treated. But within, of course, your law, in the protection of the law, everyone is equal.
Right.
But when you say equality concept or say some benefit or some advantage, then of course you might be able to classify groupings.
Right. So moving ahead a little bit, what is public interest litigation?
Yes, a public interest litigation, normally in any court of law, you need to have locus standi. You have to have a nexus between what you are complaining and yourself. Now, you say the next door neighbor has some problem with the municipality, you can't generally file a case, no?
Yes.
That's his problem. So that is locus standi. But public interest litigation is where there is affectation to your village, your community, your country. Then you go and say, well, I am also part of this community, or I am also, I mean, I'm not maybe not be directly affected, but there is interest. So I am coming as public interest.
Right.
No direct, I'm not the, I mean, I see that there is a problem, even say on behalf of a different group of people, they are being victimized. There is a bigger issue in this, but I am now coming on behalf of everyone. And on behalf of the country.
Right.
Or maybe your village or your community. So that is public interest litigation. So they dispense with the requirement for locus standi, standing, and they allow, but of course that has to be tested by court. Right. Sometimes people abuse this. Sometimes it's a private, now say some company has some private issue. They don't want to go to court because they don't want to be, upset anyone.
Yes.
So you get some poor man to file a case and go. Court might see through that and say, well, what is your public interest? You are just some, so of course courts allow it, and we have a huge jurisprudence. This started a lot in India. India, the courts were, Justice Bhagavati and people were developed public interest litigation. But even in Sri Lanka now, we have over the years, we have had, even now, for example, the Water's Edge case in the Supreme Court, that is public interest litigation, even Sri Lanka insurance. A lot of these cases which we hear, big cases, have actually been public interest litigation.
And when it comes to fundamental rights, can private companies or something, such entities been involved with?
Yes, because now, corporate personality is also a citizen. Say company registered in Sri Lanka is also equal, I mean, though it's a collective.
Yes.
So as much as there is a violation to person of fundamental rights, companies, commercial entities, partnership, they are also always working with the government in some way.
Right.
Now say some are in, say you're building roads, so you're a contractor, you're building roads. So you are building roads for the state, the Road Development Authority.
Right.
So you have, then you enter into agreements, tenders, all sorts of things. Say you tender for the construction road and you don't get the tender, they give it to you. I say no, it should be me, but I am the low tender.
Right.
So then the company's fundamental rights are violated. So you can they can complain. So there are so the rights apply to citizen and commercial entity as well. Just one thing, let me add. Also, you must be conscious now. For example, in my example, say the road tender. Now, I am saying it's violated. Then you have got this
somehow
tender.
Got it.
When I should get it.
Yes.
You also need to be conscious because you have got the tender, but you know that I should get it. So when you get the tender, in some way, I can go to court, and even though you get the piece of paper, the court can set it aside. So when you get it that way, also you have to be careful.
Right. And so, like when it comes to fundamental rights, what a prospective petitioner should consider?
So I think we discussed it at the beginning. Also, you have to consider whether your rights are violated. Also, you must see whether it's worthwhile going to court. I mean, you don't take every little thing and go, which it should, because you will have to also go through a process in court.
Yes.
Is it impactful for you? Is there prejudice caused to you? Is it worth your time to go to court? Right. Also, you have to you have to, this 1 month is very important.
Right.
Because some people think that you write letters, it's good to write letters to sort things out, but you, for 6 months you're up and down writing letters and asking for them to change it.
Right.
Then once you exhaust that process and say at the end of that 1 month it doesn't work, 6 months, you can't then go to the Supreme Court because that 1 month period is over. There is also this other forum one can go to when we speak of fundamental rights. You can also go to the Human Rights Commission.
Right.
The Human Rights Commission is established by statute to look into violations of human rights and fundamental rights. The difference is the Supreme Court is a court of law, they have enforcement power. So they make an order, and if you don't comply, they can even go by contempt and force that person to enforce.
Right.
The Human Rights Commission, the weakness in that process is that they can give, it is recommendations they can give, and there is no enforcement power, and there is a way to put it before Parliament. But like the court, it's not expeditious like the court, or it's not efficacious like the court. But a lot of matters get resolved at the Human Rights Commission because they then inform the authority, and there are a lot of circulars which say they must take action.
Right. Okay, so moving into the latter part of the program, are there any grounds upon which the relief granted should be set aside or something like that, refusing something?
Yes, the fundamental rights jurisdiction, I may best said this at the beginning, is a just and equitable jurisdiction. So just and equitable means, Charitha, it's also balancing.
Right.
And this is a very dynamic area which the courts get involved. The public government sector, it's not a dispute between two people. So it's a government, development, all that. So public policy also plays a role. There, and also the court has a discussion. The court, if it feels that, well, yes, excess fundamental rights have been violated. However, that particular action of the government provides greater good for a larger number of people. So yes, there is a violation. But now say that example we said about the building the dam. There is a violation for some, I'm just hypothetically, there is a violation of maybe 20 farmer families.
Right.
Because of the building of the dam. But because of the building of the dam, there is a benefit to 50,000 people. Or 100,000 people. So then they will say, well, okay, then maybe pay some compensation. You need to, there is a land acquisition process. So it's a balancing thing. So just because you can establish that your fundamental rights are violated, the courts will look at public policy, whether there is affectation to others, things like that. So it's a very balancing jurisdiction.
Right. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, we were talking about fundamental rights, scope, applications, and certain issues in dealing with how to file cases and how to move ahead with fundamental rights. So, today's discipline was fundamental rights, and we had a thorough idea and a knowledge about the particular topic. So, thank you very much, sir, for joining with us with today's program. And it's a really pleasure to discuss on fundamental rights, which is a controversial and even a timely, valuable topic for the Law and Order program, and even for the audience that are keen with this program. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for watching Law and Order. Stay tuned for more episodes in the future as well. Thank you very much for watching. Have a pleasant day.